Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So, what's on tap for today? Well, we've got another great video clip, folks. This time it's from the Politicon debates, another of our series, bringing you the Politicon debates between Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, who I affectionately like to call the Young Jerks, and from Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire, the Live Wire. We're going to get to those debates right now. It's part one. Just a few seconds, folks, but before we do so, just want to let you know that you're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. Please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Put your comments down below. Let's get right to those debates.
With one of the topics in the news today, and that's healthcare. And I'm going to start with Ben. Are you proud or disappointed in establishment GOP figures like John McCain, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins for their vote on healthcare?
So I'm wildly disappointed with the entire party. The fact is that we were promised a full repeal of Obamacare. They did not even attempt to pursue a full repeal of Obamacare. And the fact of the matter is that there's a significant gap inside the Republican Party about whether this should even happen or not. There are people who believe that the Obamacare regulations are an affirmative good. There was an attempt to basically leave all the Obamacare regulations in place and just remove the funding mechanism, which would have led to the exacerbation of the death spiral. The truth about healthcare is this. There are three qualities of healthcare that you can have. You can have affordability, you can have universality, or you can have quality. And you can have two of those three things, but not all three. Right? You can have universality, affordability, or quality. Two of those things you can have. And one of the things that's happened with Obamacare is that you've gotten closer to universality, but you haven't gotten any closer to either affordability or quality. And the Republican Party seems to be falling into the trap of basically just copying what the Democrats do, except being worse at it. What they actually need to do is relieve the regulatory burden that is driving up the cost of healthcare, and they need to stop acting as though insurance companies' jobs is actually just to reimburse people for their bad health. If you join up with an insurance company and your health sucks to begin with, you're going to pay more because it's an insurance company, not a charity. And that doesn't mean that we can't have... Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have some form of backup for people who have pre-existing conditions. I would hope that the social fabric would help fill that in. This is why I'm a big believer in charity and churches and synagogues filling that gap. But what we can't do is suggest, as the Bernie Sanders left does, that healthcare is an inalienable right, and therefore you can put a gun to my wife's head, she's a doctor, and you can force her to provide care at any cost you want to pay. You can't do that and hope to increase the supply of healthcare. Health insurance is not healthcare. They're not the same thing. And anybody who tells you differently is lying or trying to sell you something.
Excellent.
Opening salvo, not too bad. Pretty succinctly explained. The question was, do you think the Republicans did anything with health care? Gave you a pretty good answer. I think it's suffice to say, let's see what the Cenkster has to say.
Cenk, your take on the healthcare vote.
Great. Before I do that, first of all, welcome to the Thunderdome.
No, they didn't like that, did they? No,
All right. Let's hear him speak.
Yes. Guys, wait till he does something. I mean,
In all seriousness, the reason that I kid around about that is that I really want to make sure that Ben's opinions are heard and my opinions are heard, and that this is an exchange of ideas. And believe it or not, there are some things that we do agree on, but we won't be discussing those tonight. So on the issue of healthcare, let's get going. So the Democratic Party is incredibly proud that they defeated a bill that had 17% approval rating. It's a low bar. And I'm glad they held. The Republicans have a comical position, which is that why didn't the Democrats help us defeat Obamacare? Well, that's kind of because that was their idea, and why in God's green earth would they help you defeat their own plan? Now, is Obamacare enough? Not nearly. And there are a number of issues that we had as progressives with it, including lack of price controls. You left it in the hands of private insurance, and of course, them being corporations, which Ben kind of alluded to there, they're going to want to make money. And so that is very, very normal. And so I don't think that that was the right way to approach it, and it was originally a Heritage Foundation plan to begin with. So I believe that the right approach, and the one that Democrats should pursue next, although they probably won't, is Medicare for all.
Oh, he's getting booed. They don't like that.
So real quick, let me explain why. Medicare polls at 77% and actually accomplishes the three things that Ben talked about. It's universal coverage, it is affordable, and actually gives you good insurance. That's why it polls.
It pulls that way because people think it's going to be basically free, but don't tell me that it gives you great health care. Check the VA, Cenk. Check the VA.
77%. And Medicare for all now polling at 60%. Federally funded health insurance for everybody polling at 61%. So I tell to my Democratic friends, you might want to try something that's popular for a change. So, and finally, like on the idea that, hey, listen, everybody can't get health care. Well, this is not like furniture, which sometimes you allude to, Ben. You could have good furniture, bad furniture. I've had it all, right? That's optional. If you don't have good health care, you die. And so I view it as not something that capitalism should deal with, and I believe in capitalism, and I think they make great sneakers, but something that is about equality of opportunity. And you cannot have equality of opportunity if you're dead. So Medicare for all.
So Cenk came out there, tried to do a little, be the jokester for a little bit, and just got absolutely pummeled by the crowd. I mean, he's got some people out there or whatever. So not getting, my initial sense right now, it seems that the crowd seems to be a little bit on Ben's side. So would you say that the people at Politicon in this audience here are more conservative than they are liberal or libertarian or progressive or whatever? It would seem so from the opening salvo here. But basically, so far, no points, getting their points across. The only thing is that, Cenk, when he said it covered the 3 points, affordable, price control, it's universal or whatever. Yeah, Medicare would probably be universal, but don't tell me it's going to give you great quality and price control. All right? Price control for who? For the doctors who work really hard, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in school, and now you're going to tell them what they can do, how much they can make, and you're going to dictate to them the rules and the regulations? That's bullshit. No doctors want to do that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So a couple of notes in response to the Medicare for all shtick. So this is Bernie Sanders shtick, obviously. The problem with Medicare for all is that when people say that it's affordable, this isn't affordable to the person who has the Medicare. It is not affordable to the country. In fact, it is so unaffordable to the country that the state of California was a nut job leftist state, just refused to even pass Medicare for all because it would have immediately doubled the debt.
Point one for Ben Shapiro. Takedown.
As far as the idea that medical care is a right, but it's not actually a good or a service, this is a way to make things less plentiful. If you declare things rights, but you don't actually incentivize the creation of those things, you don't get more of them. So the South African Constitution has right in there that healthcare is a right, that housing is a right. The fact is that you don't have good housing or healthcare in South Africa because just declaring things rights does not make them appear. What makes more things appear is a market-based system that creates more doctors, that creates more medical care, that creates more incentive for people to join up. So my wife is a doctor. That means she has to go through 1,000 years of medical training, and we have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make her a doctor. The idea that you're going to have the government come in and then dictate the sort of care that she should provide to each particular patient, and then dictate how much she should be paid for that care, is going to lead to a decrease in the number of people who are going into the medical industry, which decreases the level of care overall. This is why I say that it is better to treat things as goods than as rights, because declaring something a right just means that you have the right to steal it from me. But declaring something a good means that you get a market process that leads to lower prices and better care over time. And the big problem we've had before Obamacare is that it was already treated quasi as a right. You had it heavily regulated on the state level. It is continually heavily regulated. There's a completely unregulated market is absolute nonsense. The reason you have employer-based health insurance in the first place was as a response to wage and price controls placed in the aftermath of World War II, and employers began giving health insurance as an actual good, right? They gave it as an actual incentive to their employees. If you had an actual individual-based health insurance market, you bought it just like you bought your car insurance, you would see more and better health care for everyone.
Point 2 takedown, point 3 takedown for Ben. He went right after Cenk and got him on those 3 points, basically, okay? When he's talking about, in terms of, about the fact that California turned down single payer, okay? Because they knew it was going to bankrupt them, okay? So point right there. You know, Cenk is talking about Medicare across the United States. California, the 4th largest economy in the world, I believe, basically can't do it. No, it's going to make them bankrupt. Point number 2, rights versus goods. Just because you enshrine or put it in the Constitution or in the documents of a country or whatever, doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And the other thing what I talked about previously is the fact that you've got doctors that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to prepare to go into the field of medicine, and now you're going to price control those doctors. You're going to take all the incentive away for doctors to get into this. They're going to say, what am I going to do? Spend all this money, all this time, and then you're going to basically, you know, be my employer? I mean, that's not the way it's supposed to work. That's not the way it's supposed to be done. Not for the field of medicine. And then the portability issue. Talking about that, if we just allowed health insurance to be like we bought car insurance or mortgage insurance or flood insurance or, you know, whatever other insurance that you need. You pick and choose what you want. You buy according state lines. You don't really care. If I find a company that wants to sell me insurance in California and it's cheap, I'll buy it from over there. You allow that to happen. That's the free market that's occurring, basically. Let's see what Cenk, if he can counter these arguments in his rebuttal.
Yep. All right. So, Ben, I don't want to steal health insurance from you. I want you to be healthy. That's why I want Medicare for all.
You would be stealing from everybody.
You just want to take my money and my wife's services.
So, you know, Republicans frame taxes as stealing. That's preposterous. So if we don't have taxes, well, we can't do all the things that we want to do as a community. Now, there are some things that we just talked about that we don't want to do as a community, we want to do as individuals. In fact, the things that we want to do as individuals are much greater. That's why we're a mixed economy, but largely capitalist. And I agree with that. And I run a small business myself, getting larger every day. So, but there are some things that the government should do. They should do the military, cops, roads, bridges, and yes, education and healthcare. That's because, you know, conservatives seem a little confused about how healthcare works. Paul Ryan had a whole press conference about this. Ben a little bit alluded to it there. They're like, oh my God, it turns out the healthy subsidize the sick. Yeah, that's insurance. That's how it works. It's like the people with that are not getting into accidents are subsidizing the accidents. Yes, that's car insurance. That's how insurance works. And yes, taxes work in that we all decide we're going to do X, but we're not going to do Y. And I think it is fair for society to say that yes, we are going to do health care for everybody. Everybody. We're not going to leave 20 million people uninsured. We're not going to leave 30 million people uninsured. That's not what we do in a civilized society. And from time to time, the attack against Medicare, they say, oh, it's an entitlement. Yeah, we paid for it through payroll taxes our whole lives. You're goddamn right we're entitled to it, because we paid for it. We paid for it. And so when you take out the middlemen of the insurance companies that put their profits in there, that put their marketing in there, that put their lobbyist money in there, that means more savings for Americans. And so finally, you know, the idea that it can't be done is preposterous, since every other Western developed country does some version of single payer. It obviously can be done, and it is done at lower rates and better coverage.
So let me...
Okay, We're going to end it with this one here, basically. But I just said that every other country does it in the civilized, industrialized world. They do it. It's universal coverage, better health care, better rates, lowered costs. It's phenomenal. And why can't we do it over here? Well, my question to Cenk would be is, we have like 330 freaking million people over here. We are a melting pot of different ethnicities, different races, different heritages, differences, which is not applicable in many of the countries that you're talking about. When you talk about the Nordic countries like Sweden and Finland and Norway and whatever, 99.9999% white. What type of diseases do they have that are predominantly okay for Caucasians versus the difference we have with blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans and people from the Middle East and others? There's a lot of overlap, obviously, in terms of diseases, but there's certain diseases and certain challenges and health challenges that are predominantly within certain geographical populations and ethnicities. Are you accounting for that? And then if you're talking about universality or Medicare for all, just look at the VA, folks. Look at the VA and what a freaking joke that is. We can't even take care of our veterans properly in terms of time, in terms of, it may be free for them, but look at the level of care. The doctors are doing as much as they can, but it's an overburdened system. And there's so much going on. We found out previously, that in terms of trying to get an appointment, you got to wait 2-3 months for a simple appointment. Make it competitive. Allow the free market to enter. I would have to say basically that in the initial stages, the first salvos, it was even. But Ben came on strong, scored those 3 points in the latter rounds. So I basically say this first part 1 definitely goes to Ben Shapiro. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate you taking the time. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. Follow us, please. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Put your comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. And my final parting thought is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.